It's My Nerd World, Depeche Mode, the podcast, and welcome to it. Frustration, as Ghosts Again from the album Memento Mori, expected in March, gets an announcement date on a day when everybody expected we were actually going to get the single. It is My Nerd World, and welcome to it. I'm your host, Jon Justice, in Depeche Mode, the podcast. And I had a completely different show planned for today. So I guess we should probably start back. Well, okay, let me go ahead and let's do the news, and then we'll start at the beginning and kind of bring us to where we are right now at 11:23 my time central here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So last week, for those that follow Depeche Mode and are signed up for mailing lists, or if you're on any other social networking, we were all provided a link via the official Depeche Mode accounts. And in the link was a sign-up form for what would potentially be a postcard. I think it actually mentioned it on the sign-up form. And at the bottom of the sign-up form, it also had links to pre-save for Spotify, iTunes, and I think there were other streaming outlets there as well. And then there was a countdown to 11 o'clock my time, 12 o'clock Eastern here in the United States, which led all of us to believe that we would be getting the first single from Memento Mori, which we, at the time, all anticipated would be called Ghosts Again. And it turns out that indeed is the case. The announcement that was made was the first single off of Depeche Mode's next album, Memento Mori, comes out February 9th, 2023. Set your clocks for 6 p.m. CET, 5 p.m. GMT, 11 a.m. Eastern, so it'll be 10 o'clock my time Central, and 8 a.m. Pacific time. Now, some confusion came into play earlier this week. And that confusion came into play because there was, the Discord. So the official Discord channel that launched when the announcement took place had been posting some cryptic photos. There was some coordinates that were given out. I mentioned this on a previous episode this week. There were coordinates that were given out along with photographs, and it was all leading to a location in Los Angeles where this mural was going up. And over the course of the past week, we saw the artwork begin to take shape on this mural. And then as of, I believe, yesterday, might have been late on Wednesday, but as of yesterday, posters began to pop up in different parts of the world, showing these two angel wing floral arrangements against this backdrop. There was a QR code attached to the poster that had been placed in various cities around the country. And if you were to use the QR code, it sent you to Instagram, if you have an Instagram account, and it had a filter on there with the Depeche Mode Memento Mori logo in 3D, and it had another countdown. Now, that countdown will be ending at the time when now we know the single is going to debut. So when that second countdown popped up, it ended up creating a lot of speculation about what we would actually be getting today. Because in Depeche Mode's defense, because people are very upset on Twitter right now, and I'm just looking at the various comments that are being made at the moment, and it is clear that people are pretty upset at the PR for Depeche Mode. Very disappointed with this marketing. Never thought that a countdown would lead to another countdown. Major fail. I hear you like countdowns, so I put another countdown in your countdown. And look, as Depeche Mode fans, I think we all know we're not going anywhere. We're all going to be excited come next Thursday, and we'll probably be over it by then. I know most likely I will. But to have a countdown to a countdown with nothing. I mean, I think there would have been less frustration if we as fans who have been waiting all week would have received information on the albums, track listings, an album release date. But I'm looking through Twitter right now. I've never seen in my 37 going on 38 years of Depeche Mode fandom, Depeche Mode fans this upset. Ever. As a matter of fact, I mean, I take pride of being a part of the Black Swarm. I take pride in being a part of this amazing family and the individuals that I've met through this show and throughout the years. And Depeche Mode has been, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you know. I mean, I'm as big a devotee as they come. I've seen them 33 times live. I wear it as a badge of honor. I'm proud of that fact. And one of the things that I'm especially proud of is just how we as fans are. And for this band that we love so much to have their PR make a mistake after waiting 6 years, I'm a little bit dumbfounded. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at this point in time if the band and management see the level of frustration coming from the fandom right now, that they didn't go ahead and release the single anyways, because I'm looking at another one. Really funny here, Depeche Mode, another countdown, and it's a post to the thank you for signing up that we got earlier this week. Now, clearly, this was a timing issue, because the posters with the QR code were pointing to the actual release date, and so I think the intent here was, okay, we'll have a countdown. We'll put these posters up for people that don't follow. They'll get the actual countdown. And we as fans, obviously, all saw it earlier. We as fans received the email blasts because we follow them so closely. So we all had a countdown, while the rest of the world and the casual fans had no idea. Well, it's us hardcore fans that have been here every step of the way that are left disappointed. Any casual fans out there that happen to use the QR code on the poster are going to be like, hey, cool. But this is honestly no way to go and treat Depeche Mode fans. Pain and suffering in various countdowns. Bitterly disappointing. If you happen to be listening live and you want to chime in, feel free. I do have the chat open currently for those that want to chime in during this live feed. But again, I am stunned. I'm going to pop over to the Depeche-mode.com forum, and this is the home page for the Halo forum. And I'm scrolling through the comments here. This doesn't build excitement. It just winds people up. I expected at least the confirmation of the album release and some pre-orders. We didn't even get that. I'm proper fed up. Countdown stupid. Countdown stupid. Playing nothing seems appropriate tonight, but not tonight. Yeah, I mean, again, I have never, and this page has grown. The last time I clicked on it, they were at page 268. I'm going to click over to 273. And I'm not giving excuses for the band, but again, the band that size has zero control on when and how an album and single will be released. There are a few exceptions. Trent Reznor, for example, has gone out of his way to deliver albums exactly on his terms, but DM have never really shown that level of dedication when it comes to the communications by the fans, have they? Maybe they forgot the snare in the final mix. Somebody had pointed out, and I noticed this as well, on the Instagram post, they have the snippet for Ghosts Again that we've all heard already. But at the end, you do get like another 2 or 3 beats of extra music. I'm removing the data permission given to Sony. Funny enough, the most exciting thing during the pre-release times has been the Camel Fat remix being played live, which probably wasn't even planned by Sony. And you know that the band is paying attention to this as well because Brat, I did a pre-live show expecting that we were going to get the single. I did a pre-live show leading into this official podcast today, and Brat, Daniel Brasi, I believe, Brasini is how you say his name. He had posted earlier on the Discord page that we'd all find out at 9:01 Pacific time, his time. And what would be coming out, and that the fan sites would have to change their content. And I got this vibe coming from that it was like, well, it's the fans went too far. Like the vibe I got from Brat was that it was the fan sites were the ones that were speculating and announcing we were getting the single. Depeche Mode never said that. But again, to do a countdown to a countdown. It just, you really have just gone and upset the fans. I'm scrolling through the feed still. This must be late revenge for when I downloaded Exciter 2 months before the release date from Napster and then bought it anyway. They're getting slaughtered on social media serves them right. Poor press conference. Expensive tickets, now this. Somebody commented, just shows how important Fletch was. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I am really, really flabbergasted at the level of frustration. Looking at another tweet. Geez, that was not a very clever move. Terrible marketing strategy, guys. A countdown to an announcement for the single whose teaser has been around for months. Seriously, I wonder who the PR manager responsible for this underwhelming decision was. Yeah, I am. Boy. TalkShowNerd at gmail.com is my email address. I would love to hear from you. The last thing that I ever want to do on a Depeche Mode podcast is, be frustrated. But I know for a lot of other fans it's the same way. But for me, I'll just tell you, for me, I've been excited all week long. I've been planning my week out. I've been listening to Depeche Mode. I have been going through and listening to the Breathing in Fumes podcast, and he hasn't put out a ton, but they really are fantastic podcasts. And I found a few more. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and while I've got my phone in my hand, I was listening to one right before I got home today on the way home from work, and I wanted to make sure that I shared it with you. I may grab a couple audio clips from it when I get the chance. There's not a lot of podcasts out there. I mean, it's part of the reason why I do this one. Turning Tracks. From December 21st of 2022, they do an entire episode. It's over 2 hours long, dedicated to Depeche Mode. And it's the host sharing Depeche Mode music with someone with, somebody who loves music for the first time. And he plays the songs in their entirety, and then he gets the response from the person who's hearing Depeche Mode for the first time. And it really is an incredibly enjoyable listen. I told this story on many podcasts ago, but a good friend of mine who went to the Academy of Radio Broadcasting with me was unfamiliar with Depeche Mode. And one night he was at my house. He lived in Los Angeles. I lived in Anaheim, California. And he came over. Let's just say we imbibed. And I wanted to share Depeche Mode with him. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put on the devotional movie video. I had the VHS copy on my little 19-inch TV screen. So I went ahead and I put it on, and we sat back and we watched it. And he was a huge, massive Doors fan. Massive Doors fan. And from the drop, he was locked in. And we just sat there and enjoyed our drinks. He was silent for the entire duration of the concert of Devotional, watching it in my little crappy apartment in Anaheim, California. It was over, and he was silent. And he just looked at me, and he goes, that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had, watching a concert or listening to music. He's like, I'd heard of Depeche Mode, but I never imagined. And that, Dave Gahan was up there for him with Jim Morrison from The Doors. It was just an incredible experience. And he's been a fan ever since. I mean, that's the power that this band has and the uniqueness that this band has. And this week, I've been wearing my Depeche Mode shirts. I've been listening to these podcasts. Got off the air this morning in the middle of commercial breaks while I'm doing my radio talk show. I'm on the Halo forum and I'm on Twitter and I'm just looking and reading fans' excitement over today. I'm wearing my Spirit Tour t-shirt. I was texting my wife saying it's Depeche Mode Day. I have my whole evening planned out. I've got my 101 box set Blu-ray ready to go. It's still sitting up in my recliner. I got my rum. I know what my family's doing tonight. They know to expect Dad to be, enjoying some drinks and watching Depeche Mode. And I decided when I got home, like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go live. I'm going to do something I don't rarely do, and I'm going to go live with the show and just share my thoughts as we all anticipate the release of this single. And we waited 6 years. And now we have to wait another 6 days. Boy, I just, to say that I'm disappointed is a massive understatement. I'm looking at a post here. Eric on the Halo forum says, to be fair, no official source claimed that the single would be released today. That's true. And I said that earlier. There has been a countdown, yes, but who said this was about a release? You can't count on anything. People put two and two together and assume this was about a release, but it has never been confirmed or stated that. I'm disappointed as well, but I'd only be correct with that if they announced something they did not stick to. But honestly, that isn't the case. My only pushback on that is that in that initial sign-up, it had pre-save links to iTunes and Spotify specifically. So, why do that? I mean, the way this should have been handled is they should have put those billboard up. We never should have gotten that pre-sign-up. I guess that's my point. We never should have gotten a week ago that pre-sign-up. It should have been, that should have dropped today. We should have had the posters going up. We would have had the excitement of, they're putting up a billboard in Los Angeles with no information. And then today, they send out the press release, sign up with the announcement and the links. The only thing I can imagine is that the sign-ups needed to be done within a certain time frame for it to work, to automatically get the song downloaded to our phones. That's the only thing that I can imagine as to why they did it the way they did it. But really, it should have been today, everything came out. They had the sign-up page that we all got a week ago. And then, TalkShowNerd at gmail.com. Again, I'm just looking through. I wish Twitter had an unlike button for a moment like this. Yeah, you had every opportunity to register your interest in Europe's tour. Instead, this wouldn't have happened. This is like the moment that a kid in A Christmas Story gets his decoder ring for a super important message, and it just tells him to drink Ovaltine. Utterly underwhelming. I've waited ages to hear the new single, and that's the part of it as well. I was telling my wife and my 20-year-old son, I go, it's been 6 years. This is the longest that I've ever had to wait for any new Depeche Mode music. And I didn't think that I was going to have to wait any longer, but unfortunately, it looks like I am. All right, so I did have a show planned today. I'm going to go ahead and hold off on the further comments that I was planning on getting into, because the bulk of it was going to be talking about the new single. However, many of you have reached out to the show over the course of the past week. So I will go ahead and we'll get into some more positive news with your listener feedback this week. All right, first one comes from Nina Wilder. Yes, I agree. I'm super excited this year, this tour. I suffer from neurological issues, and at the last tour, I thought it'd be my last, and nope, here I am, and I'm super grateful. Talk about memento mori, seize the day. Thank you, Nina. I was really moved by your message, and I really do appreciate your response. As somebody who's dealt with his own heart issues, and having lost my my best friend in June of last year, life is precious, and I certainly can sympathize. So that's great. It's great to hear that you're doing well. Glenn Rothery writes, "What a fantastic podcast! Thank you. Love from England. I'm 49 from Newcastle in the north. Seen them lots of times since 1980, and I think sadly this will be the last time we anticipate a new album. Enjoy this time. Fans of this band are the greatest." Yeah, it's just a bummer when we get massively disappointed. Somebody had left a quick message just saying that, they said, like Fairweather fans have been saying that, it's their last album since Ultra. And I understand that. Or fake fans, he said. Fake fans have been saying that. But given what this band has been through, it hasn't been unlikely, especially with just the issues between, obviously before we lost Fletch, but years ago when you go back to Songs of Faith and Devotion, all the turmoil around that tour, around that album, Dave's drug addiction, Fletch's issues with depression, Martin's issues with drinking. I think for many of us, once we got past Ultra, once we got into, Exciter and playing the Angel, clearly the band was heading in the right direction. But with the loss of Fletch, there was a question mark on whether or not we'd get new music. And certainly with the band getting on in age and Dave's even reluctance via what he said during the press conference of going back on tour, I think it's safe to say that this could possibly be the last hurrah for the band, even though they may still make music. But I think touring would be a big, massive question. Adam Barker writes, "Can't wait for the album. It seems to be a good time for DM. I did hear that Enjoy the Silence charted in Germany because of something on TikTok." Yeah, that was a trend on TikTok for a couple of weeks. Also, Never Let Me Down Again was number one in the UK and US on Shazam because it was on the Last of Us program. Good timing, I'd say. Do you think it's a bit odd that the single has 0 radio play? Usually it has play before the release to get orders of sales in. Well, that may be the case now. I mean, we may have an opportunity to hear the single anyways, depending on if radio stations get it prior to its release date next Thursday. I wonder if this means that there will be any physical releases of the album. And we still don't. I mean, we didn't even get information for that today. Oh, I'm frustrated. All right. Let's see. Andrew Thomas writes, only just came across the podcast, so emailing you with thanks. Thank you. DM changed my musical life from Black Celebration in 86 at 16 years old. It was the perfect album for a young lad growing up in Wales. It's been amazing. People from Italy, Wales, Germany, just been absolutely fantastic. The friends that I've been making through the podcast. It was music that I'd not heard before. Big bass, industrial, and dark. I even used Blasphemous Rumors as my O-level English fictional essay. No teacher knew I took the lyrics and formed a 1,500-word piece. I had a B as a result. In my work as a creative director, the photographer who shot all of the content for the singles 86 to 98 is my friend Rick. I think he's the only other photographer used instead of Anton. Plus, you are the only person I know that's seen them over 16 times. Keep up the great work. He wrote Andu, so my apologies there, Andrew Thomas. And I actually emailed back and forth with Andu a bit over the course of the past week, and I still do, the artwork and the photography done for the singles collection. I thought that apart from Anton, it's probably some of my favorite Depeche Mode artwork that they've ever gone and put together. Just absolutely stunning. And I was looking at the tour program just recently, and just admiring the work of his friend. Really, really cool. Just got an email from Olaf. Hey, John, I'm from Denmark. part of the Danish DM forum. People are really disappointed and somewhat mad about the countdown for the countdown. It seems like a really clumsy way of handling the single promotion. I feel cheated. I don't think Fletch would have done it that way. Well, I'm still looking forward to February 9th. Thanks for the great podcast. Yeah. Yeah, we know the band's got to be paying attention because, Brat, who I mentioned earlier with the band, had posted that in the Discord channel. And I imagine that the Discord channel right now has got to be blowing up. I'm going to take a break here just briefly. I want to take a look and see if there's anything new on the Halo forum. So, wow. I'm just scrolling through here. Today was the second letdown. A lot of people complaining about the press conference. The only thing I'm annoyed about the press conference, and I mentioned this at the time, all the interviews after the press conference were fantastic, but the press conference itself stunk. As I wrote earlier, maybe expectations about the countdown were based on wishful thinking or something, but someone must have known how DM fans work and to the extent this release is anticipated. And I'm not a marketer in any way, and I have no experience in that area, but I certainly would have expected these reactions. I wouldn't have expected these reactions from the DM fan base. Obviously, I've never seen an S-storm like this, not even after Songs of Faith and Devotion and Exciter, which were too much for many, many diehard fans. And you go back to Songs of Faith and Devotion, and thankfully we didn't have the internet back then. I loved it from the get-go. I didn't realize that there were fans that actually had an issue with Songs of Faith and Devotion. Exciter I can understand, and I'm going to talk a lot more about the albums themselves as I have in the past on future podcasts, because there's a lot to be said about some of the minor complaints that bands have had over the years, especially as it relates to sort of the electro blues sound that a lot of people feel has been redundant. I spent so much time listening to Depeche Mode music post-Ultra over the course of the past few weeks. I've actually been pleasantly surprised at the amount of diversity there is between albums themselves and specifically in the albums. I mean, it's one of the amazing things about the band and always has been is their... from a musical standpoint and a lyrical standpoint, and you get into the specificity of the music and some of the chord progression changes that Martin has used and Dave has used over the years, and it really, obviously adds to the uniqueness of the band, but also the fact that we get these mainstream, what Martin would say, sort of your typical, that sounds like Depeche Mode, but then within the albums we get songs that really do stray away from what you would normally typically, say is Depeche Mode sound. For example, a song that I love that really has grown on me is My Little Universe off of Delta Machine. But that sounds like something that could have been lifted directly off Exciter in my view. I'm just scrolling through. All right, I'm going to get back over to, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that the fans are so upset, and I understand why they are. All right, let's get back to some more listener feedback here. Let's see. John Lote, if I'm saying that right, John, L-O-T-E, Lote, writes, loving the DM podcast. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I've been a fan of the band since 86, 89 dropped. Summer of 2000, I was on a holiday on an island of Spain. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. One evening, I was drunk in a bar, trying and failing to chat a girl up, when a friend somehow got wind of Andy Fletcher also being in the same bar as us. He stopped me mid-conversation, likely one-way conversation, to tell me Fletch is just over there. When I looked over, I suddenly sobered up for a moment. I couldn't believe he was actually there with his wife drinking in the same bar as us. I went straight over to say hello to both of them, and they were fantastic to us. We chatted for about an hour, I think. It was amazing because nobody else was bothering them in the bar, so to have an hour of his time was a dream come true. Unfortunately, being drunk meant that some of it is a blurry haze, but I do recall clearly the moment when he said he was planning to speak to Martin next week to discuss his demos for the new album, which eventually became Exciter. It blew my mind that he casually said all of this to me. I'm eternally grateful for my time with him. And Granny, I pronounced her name completely wrong when I spoke to her. and we'll cherish it forever. Have a great week, John. Looking forward to hearing more of your podcast, and all the best to your science fiction writing. Regards, John Lote. Yeah, I mean, I talk about my... Thank you so much, John, for the email. I've failed to mention on the past few podcasts my science fiction space opera series, although if you've listened to any other podcast, you know that I probably talk about them too much. One of the books, though, is a single science fiction adventure. It's also book 4 in the series, but it's a spinoff. You can actually read it all by itself. And it's called Gahan Corbijn and the Asteroid of Misfortune. Gahan Corbijn is a former rock star on Earth, but after Earth's destruction, he ends up becoming essentially an intergalactic or a galactic interstellar messenger. He ends up marooned on an asteroid with his sarcastic AI companion. And yes, he's named Gahan Corbijn for the obvious reasons. All right. Friend of the show, Jon Justice, John, writes in. Can you believe we get a new Depeche Mode music tomorrow? Sadly, John, we didn't. I can't wait to listen to the full track of Ghosts again. Me neither. Next week. I believe you know about my DM story, but I thought I would share it with you for the listeners. I first heard Depeche Mode on MTV in 1984 with People Are People. It was a great song with a very positive message. I bought some great reward and can remember riding my bike while listening to the cassette on my Sony Walkman. Stories of Old is still one of my personal favorites. Mine too. After that, I purchased Black Celebration and The Love Affair began. I joined Columbia House Record and Tape Club, wow, and claimed the entire back catalog from DM. They were different than the other bands, and the lyrics of Martin spoke to me in my formidable teen years, mine as well. My first concert was June of 1990. The World Violation Tour was coming to Cincinnati, and myself and 5 others went to the concert together in a van from Louisville. In that group was the sister of a friend's girlfriend. Little did I know that not only was I seeing Depeche Mode that night, but I would also spend that evening with the love of my life, Jenny. We started dating soon after, but she was headed to St. Louis University in August, which was 300 miles away. We dated through October of that year, with me traveling on weekends to see her. Unfortunately, the distance took its toll on us, and we broke up. We were apart for 16 years prior to reconnecting and getting married in the summer of 2008. At our wedding, my friend played Somebody on the piano as the guests were being ushered into their seats. Other than the World Violation Tour, we have seen DM in Toronto, Tampa during Tour of the Universe, in Tampa and Las Vegas for Delta Machine. We actually got to meet Jonathan Kessler at that Las Vegas show, which is the closest I've ever been to meeting the band. And lastly, in Nashville and Chicago during the Global Spirit Tour, getting to meet you in Chicago prior to the show. Yep. Super excited for tomorrow. Can't wait for Memento Mori and the Chicago show this year. Enjoy your podcast. All the best, John. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that John hasn't texted me yet. We still stay in somewhat contact, and I'm kind of... Let me look at my phone. I'm a little bit surprised that he hasn't texted me his disappointment. And I mentioned this a long time ago, and John, I'd forgotten we had somebody played at our wedding as well. Except we had a local high school orchestra come in and do the string version. And I told the story before, but since I'm on it, I'll tell it again. I wanted the piano, the actual music, and not the Muzak version. All right, I wanted just the actual music portion of it, because a lot of times when you get the instrumental, it's the lyrical instrumental of somebody, and I wanted the music. And I remember it was the only thing when the orchestra at the tiny little chapel we were in, it's a high school orchestra, so it wasn't anything major, but at the orchestra that we were in, when they started, I remembered I was a bit let down because I was like, oh, gosh darn it, they're playing the lyric version of the instrumental. And then my wife came around the corner and looked like an angel, just absolutely beautiful. And any frustration that I had over the lack of the song being the way that I wanted it to be went completely out the window. So, all right, one more for you here, and these are all been great, by the way. This is a bit of a long one, but I definitely want to share it with you. This comes from Cedric. So Cedric writes in, thanks for all you do. As a 39-year fan of the band, ever since People Are People, just like John, I enjoy every episode of your show like a little guilty pleasure, little treasure. As a podcaster myself, I know how much time and effort it takes to keep a podcast going, so yay you. I heard you mention Taratata on the show, and there are a few pieces of information that may be of interest to you and my fellow listeners and fans of Depeche Mode. Lots of good news, actually. On a personal note, things didn't start out too well. Taratata announces upcoming shows on Twitter and Facebook with a link to request tickets to the taping that are raffled a few hours after the announcement. I was on the road on Tuesday when they posted the news about the February 14th show, so I only heard a couple of hours later via the email alert. I was driving on a major highway at the time and stopped as quickly as I could, but unsurprisingly by then there were no raffle tickets to be had anymore. I was just gutted. Now for the good news. Taratata has been on the air for almost 30 years in France. It's a remarkable show in that all artists perform live. No start the tape there. It is also a long show. It runs 2.5 hours with no ads. There will be a lot of Depeche Mode to enjoy there, even though they will not be the only guests. Being a French show, most of their guests are French, but they are also used to hosting major acts. In the last few shows, they've had Tears for Fears, Coldplay, and lots of others. The show is mostly music, but also large interview segments. The good news is that the host, Nagi, speaks okay English and conducts his interviews in English when appropriate, and the interviews are subtitled rather than dubbed in French, which is so much better, especially if you want to play some excerpts on your show. I'm told that the show will be taped on the 14th and will air the 25th in France on on the France 2 channel. That you can't really watch outside of France. Their online content is also likely geo-blocked. Luckily, the show also airs on TV5 Monde, French-speaking channel that is broadcast around the world and can be found on cable and satellite in the U.S. and elsewhere. The good news here is that Taratata posts a lot of clips online, but also full shows in glorious HD available for free. To give you a better idea, he sent me a link to watch Coldplay. In other news, I'm told the band will also perform the day before on the 13th on another TV show pronounced Quotidien, a daily show modeled after The Daily Show that we're all familiar with here in the U.S. They've already done that show in the past for the launch of the Spirits album. We don't know if they will just sing one or two songs or if they'll do a full 45-minute set like the last time around. Now for the last piece of good, great, fantastic news. I was really dejected to have missed out on the raffle, as I've been waiting for Depeche to do Taratata for close to 30 years. Even worse, I manage a production company and TV studio just north of Paris, where the major studios are. And Taratata, I hope I'm saying that right, usually tapes in either two of those studios, Studio 128 and Studio 130. Studio 130 is across an alley from my office, literally yards away. Studio 128 is right behind the wall that I can almost touch from my desk. Knowing that they will be performing meters away from me is going to be torture, or rather was. As cue a choir of angels singing, I remembered that I vaguely knew someone on the Taratata production team who I got in touch with. Fast forwarding through begging and pleading and various corruption attempts here. Long story short, I got my invite to the taping, and I'm just giddy with excitement, and we'll report back after the taping so you know what to expect when the show airs. Yours, and thanks for everything, Cedric. So listen, I can hardly think of a better way to wrap up the show this week based off of the level of disappointment that unfortunately we all are having right now than with that story from Cedric. I mean, that's the love and the excitement of being a Depeche Mode fan. You know, the good news is that, a little less than a week from today, we will have forgotten all about this. We know exactly when we're going to be getting the single now. It's just, it's a bummer that it didn't end up being today. So, again, I'm scrolling back through the Twitter feed for Depeche Mode, and it's still really, really ugly. All right. I'm still going to have a Depeche Mode day. I'm still going to do exactly what I planned on doing tonight and enjoy watching 101. I just realized the box set, I don't know what, well, I know what happened. I had a lot happen last year. I haven't even gone through everything on the box set yet, so I'm definitely going to do that today. Before I let you go, as I mentioned earlier, if you read science fiction, obviously you love Depeche Mode. I hope that you will support my Nerd World and check out my science fiction space opera series, or share it with a friend or family member who enjoys sci-fi. It's a 7-book series set in the future where air and spaceflight culture has replaced car culture. It was inspired in part by Depeche Mode, life in the so-called space age, the world we live in, and life in general. Depeche Mode plays a large part in the underlying themes of the story. The main character himself is a massive Depeche Mode fan at a time in the future when the music of the 80s through the 2000s is nostalgic and popular among the characters of the story. The stories feature references to Depeche Mode, both direct and indirect, while telling an exciting science fiction space opera saga. As I mentioned before, Book 4 in the series is an action-packed standalone sci-fi survival story. While stranded far from home, running low on fuel and oxygen are the least of his problems. Corbijn barely survived the evacuation of Earth. Now the former rock star turned interstellar messenger is trying to find his place in the universe. During an interstellar war between the newly colonized planets, Corbijn and his sarcastic AI companion end up marooned on a massive asteroid with a wrecked ship. At first they are alone, but when stranglers from the war arrive, he wishes they were. So if you like your science fiction epic filled with romance and action, EMBARK is perfect for you. The entire series, the overall story of the series, as you can follow a squadron of ragtag pilots and one reluctant hero on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for their future among the stars. Head on over to Amazon.com, where you can pick up your hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. The entire 7-book series is available in all those formats on Amazon.com under Jon, Jon Justice, or mynerdworld.net. It's written for adults, but it's great for ages 11 plus. So again, you like Depeche Mode, you're listening to the podcast. If you like science fiction, I hope you go and check out my science fiction space opera series. The ebooks are priced to sell. You can pick up the opening trilogy for $3.99. Individual ebooks are $2.99, and you can pick up book 1, EMBARK book 1, for just 99 cents. So, again, ebook, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. That wraps up the show for this week. Thank you so much for listening, especially those that happen to tune in live. I think I may be doing the show live from now on, so I'll let you know what time of day and ahead of time when I plan on recording. And next week, the show will be on Thursday, as we'll finally do what I thought we were going to do today, and share my thoughts as we all sit back and listen to the first single from Memento Mori and from Depeche Mode in 6 years. In the meantime, thanks for checking it out. Make sure you follow if you're listening on YouTube. Like and subscribe the channel. Whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on, subscribe to the show. If you want to email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. You can also follow me on social media at TheMyNerdWorld. Also on Instagram at TheMyNerdWorld, at TheJonJustice on TikTok as well. Talk to you again next week. I hope wherever you are happy, you are healthy, and you are safe. Bye.
My Nerd World. Nerd World.